Hello, everyone. Just so you know and get used to my voice, this is Mrs. Kopp. Mr. Middleman and Miss Miller and I are going to be sharing the responsibility of making videos for you guys this year. So there will be times that you'll hear my voice. There's going to be times that you're going to see Mr. Middleman, and there will be times that you'll hear Miss Miller's voice. So today we're going to look at kind of trying to break the habit of using the box when you factor. Um, we have gotten used to doing that back in Algebra 1. That's how you learned how to factor. In Algebra 2, you probably still use that, especially on tougher factoring problems. But one of the things you're going to realize in pre-calculus is that you have to be able to factor quickly. So this is going to be kind of different for you. I'm going to show you what it would look like if we factored it with the box and what it would look like if we factored without the box. So as we go through this, you can be taking notes along with me, and I would recommend that if I say something that seems important to you, but I don't write it down, that maybe you stop the video and you make a little note to yourself. That's one of the great kind of positives about having these videos is that you can pause, you can rewind, you can watch something over again. You can watch a little bit now and come back and watch a little bit later. Just use these videos in a way that will help you learn. So we're going to start with a pretty simple factoring problem. And many of you probably could factor this right now without any help from me. But I wanted to start with something simple so we can see how the process works. So back in Algebra 2 and in Algebra 1, we would draw our box, and in that box, we'd put a bunch of things. We'd start out with our first term, which is x squared, okay? And then in the very last box, kind of diagonal from the x squared, we would put our constant term. And then what we're trying to do is figure out, what two numbers in here, what would we put, let me get my little pointer, what would we put here and here so that it adds up to our middle term of positive 1x. And to do that, what we said is you have to take this term times this term. We made a little diamond game out of it. And we said that would give us negative 6x squared. And then we would take what we need the two boxes here to add up to, which would be positive 1x. And we played the diamond game and we tried to figure out, what two numbers, when you multiply them, will give you negative 6x squared, but when you add them, you get positive 1x squared. And so, or positive 1x, sorry. And so most of you would be able to figure out, that's 3x and negative 2x. When I multiply them, I get negative 6x squared. When I add them, I get 1x. What we would do is we take these two numbers that we just found in our diamond game and we would write them in the box. So we'd have 3x minus 2x. And then from there, we could factor. We knew that on the, remembering that this is all an area model, so this times this would have to give me what's written here. So I knew that this would have to be x times x. Knowing that this length is x now, I can say, well, x times something would give me 3x, so this would have to be 3. I know that x times something would give me negative 2x, so that gives me negative 2 here. And then I factored it. I'd have x plus 3 times x minus 2. Okay, it's a lot of work to go through that process, but it does work every time. And that's why I think a lot of people tend to kind of cling to that method. What I want to do is show you a quicker way to do this. It's not as systematic, but it is a lot of times going to give you a feel for how things work a little bit better. And from there, you'll be able to learn little tricks. The more you force yourself to use this, that'll make factoring a little bit easier. So what I start with, I'm going to write my trinomial here, is the fact that I know that my end goal, since this is a cubic, or I'm sorry, since this is a quadratic and we have 3 terms, we're going to end up with something where we have a binomial times a binomial. So I set that up. And essentially, guys, what's happening here is these first 2 terms here end up being whatever's in this box. Okay, so we know that something times something has to give me x squared. So I know that has to be x times x. All right, and then what happens with these 2 terms is that you're actually getting then your last square in the box. So I know that I've got to get 2 numbers that are going to multiply to be negative 6. Okay, so here's the thing. That negative 6, there's a few possibilities for that, right? So if I think about 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 6, I could have 1 and 6. I'm sorry, I have negative 1 and 6. I could have 1 and negative 6. I could have 2 and negative 3. And I could have negative 2 and positive 3. And all of these multiply to negative 6. So now the question is, which one of those will actually work? And here's where it becomes a little more um, of a guess and check process rather than a systematic process. And there are some tricks to this, and as we move through the year, we can help you with those. But I'm going to just try two of those numbers, right? So let's say I try negative 1 and positive 6. Okay, so I'm trying these first two. When I put them up into my trinomial or into my binomial times my binomial, I'm saying maybe this is the correct factorization. What I know is that right now negative 1 times positive 6 is going to give me negative 6. And I know that x times x is going to give me x squared. So that part of my trinomial is set. But what I don't know is what's happening with these middle boxes. So that's where the check comes into place. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check what would give me those inside and outside terms. Let me actually do that a little bit bigger here. Outside terms and inside terms. If you've ever heard the term FOIL, that's the O and the I. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I multiply the outside terms together. If I multiply x times positive 6, I'm going to get positive 6. If I multiply, let me do that in red here just so it sticks out a little bit more. And if I multiply negative 1 times x, I'm going to get negative 1x. Now, that's essentially saying that right here and right here, I would have negative 1x and positive 6x. But if I add those together, remember what we have to get with that is we have to get the trinomial x squared plus x minus 6. We have to get positive x as our middle term. If I add negative 1x and positive 6x together, that gives me 5x. That's not what I'm looking for. So now I know that this is not the correct factoring and I can get rid of that possibility. And then the guess and check is we're just going to continue to go through those possibilities, right? So let's go ahead and just go ahead. Let's try that last one, right? So we know through experience that it actually is the very last pair that I wrote down. So you can, for sake of space, I'm erasing this, but when I'm doing this on paper, I wouldn't erase this. I would just start a whole new kind of guess. So I'm going to go ahead and try now these two. So negative 2 and positive 3. Now when I do that and I check my outside term, so that's x times 3, which is going to be 3x. And my inside terms, so negative 2 times x, and that's negative 2x. Now if I add those together, I get 1x. That's what this middle term was. And that's how I know I factored this correctly. Essentially what you're doing is you're just checking your answer is all you're doing. So like I said, there are some shortcuts that we can use as we go through this process. And as we get better at it, you'll start to see that. Okay, so I'm going to move through this second example a little bit quicker, especially with the box. We're just going to move through this fast, right? So if I were to do this with the box, I would take my 5x squared and my 2 and put them in the proper places in the box. And then I would play the little diamond game where I take 5x squared times 2x, which gives me 10x squared. I look at the middle term in my trinomial, which is 7x. And I know that I'm looking for two numbers that will add to 7x, but multiply to 10x. And hopefully you can quickly see that that's going to be 5x and 2x. And then I put those in my box, and then I would continue to factor. So I would hopefully be able to see very quickly what this would factor to be. So I know what the right answer is, but I want to use the approach where we're not using the box. So let's start with my trinomial. And I know that I'm setting this up in a way that gives me a binomial times a binomial. So remember that this First term times this first term is essentially this times x times 5x in our box. It's telling us we have to be able to get this product. So to do that, I know that multiplying two integers together and getting 5x squared from them, really the only way to do that is to do 5x times x. Now, the rest of this comes from thinking about, what numbers go here and here. So to do that, we're really saying these two numbers are our last two numbers in our foiling process. When we multiply those, we have to get positive 2. So then we ask ourselves, all right, well, what are our ways to multiply to get positive 2? And hopefully you can generate those pretty quickly. -1, -2, and +1 and +2. Now I want to talk about the negative for a minute. So if we were to put -1 and -2 in here, that's going to give us middle terms that would be negative, right? So think about it over here. If I had a -1 here and a -2 here, that's going to make this -5x and make this -2x. When I add those together, I'm going to get -7x, but that's not what we see in our trinomial. We see +7x. So just by kind of using the clues within the problem, you can start to eliminate choices. So I know that this is not going to work, that -1 and -2. So I'm going to try, and I'm going to do it wrong the first time. I'm going to try +1 and +2. Now, I have forced the situation to be that when I multiply this out to check it, the first terms will give me 5x squared and the last terms will give me 2. But what I don't know yet is if the middle terms, these middle boxes, are going to add up to my 7x. So that's what I need to check. Okay, so I'm going to check that by doing my outside terms, multiplying them together, my inside terms, multiplying them together, and then checking what I have. So when I do 5x times 2, I'm going to get 10x. And when I do 1 times x, I'm going to get 1x. If I add those together, 1x plus 10x, is that 7x? No. So I know that this is not the correct way to factor this. So what I do is I'm not just going to throw +1 and +2 out and say, oh, it doesn't work, I'm done. No, there's another possibility here. Remember, it doesn't have to be that 1 goes first, okay? I can put, instead of +1 here and +2 here, I can just trade places and make this be the +2 and this be the +1. So let's go ahead and check our factoring now. So I'm erasing, like I said earlier. You don't have to erase. You can, in fact, I'd like to see your work. So we would almost prefer to see your tries. So I'm trying to see now if we're going to get 7x from our outside and inside terms. So when I multiply 5x times 1, I get 5x. When I multiply 2 times x, I'm going to get 2x. And if I add 2x plus 5x, oh, look at that, that's 7x. So what I know is that my factoring, and it's kind of nice if you take a moment and just rewrite your answer so it doesn't have all of your work on it. My final answer would be the 5x plus 2 times x plus 1. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more to try on your own, and then we'll just check in real quick and see if you get the right answer. So go ahead and try this one on your own. You can try it with the box and without the box, or I actually would probably recommend that you just try it without the box the first time. And then if you get stuck, go ahead and try it with the box and see if you can find out where you were getting stuck and why you were getting stuck. So pause the video here, take a few minutes to try this problem, and then we'll come back and check your answer. Okay, if you want to kind of take a look at my work, I didn't show all of the different possibilities I could have tried, but I did show the final answer and how to check it. Now there is always the possibility that this leading term, oops, sorry, I erased that instead of highlighting it, that this first term, maybe it's not a prime number. So maybe this is like 10x squared. So you might have to try to play around with what goes here and here as well. You are going to get better at this, and like I said, as we go through the year, we'll start to give you little tips and tricks that you can try. But we do want you to try to start factoring trinomials in this way. All right, go ahead and check in with us if you have any questions. You can try some more problems on your own with the assignment that we're going to give you, and we'll see you back here soon.